My mother-in-law kicked me out of my own house. She threw my suitcase at my feet, called me worthless, and told me I'd never be good enough for her son. What she didn't know was that the house she was throwing me out of had been mine all along. And I was about to show her exactly what happens when you underestimate someone. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Laura, and I'm a nurse. I work long shifts at the hospital, sometimes pulling doubles when they're short-staffed. It's exhausting work, but I love helping people, being there for them in their most vulnerable moments. But there was one person who never saw any value in what I did. My mother-in-law, Helena. From the moment I married her son Felipe 3 years ago, Helena made it crystal clear that I wasn't good enough for him. In her eyes, I was just a poor orphan who got lucky enough to marry into her family. "You're just a nurse," she'd say with this cruel smile. Basically a glorified maid in scrubs. My son could have married a doctor, a lawyer, someone with real ambition. But no, he chose you. I'd bite my tongue and smile. Because I loved Felipe. I really did. And I thought that if I just kept being kind, maybe one day she'd accept me. I was so naive. The worst part wasn't even Helena's cruelty. It was Felipe's silence. Every time his mother would tear me down, he'd just sit there, looking uncomfortable, but never saying a word. Never defending me. He'd always have the same excuse. "She's my mother, Laura. She means well. Just ignore her." But how do you ignore someone who lives to make you feel small? It all came to a head on a Tuesday morning. I'd just finished a brutal night shift at the hospital. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but I'd stopped by the grocery store to pick up things for dinner. When I got home, Helena was already there, sitting in my living room like she owned the place. She had a key that Felipe had given her without asking me. "You're late," Helena said, not even looking up from her phone. "I was at work," I replied, setting down the grocery bags. "Double shift." She finally looked at me, her eyes cold. "How dramatic. You act like you're saving lives when you're really just emptying bedpans and following doctor's orders." I took a deep breath. "I'm going to start dinner. Would you like to stay?" "As if I'd eat anything you cooked," she scoffed. That evening, Felipe came home, and Helena insisted we all sit down for a serious conversation. My stomach dropped. Nothing good ever came from Helena's serious conversations. We sat at the dining table, the dinner I'd prepared growing cold. Helena folded her hands and looked at Felipe like I wasn't even in the room. "Son," she began, "we need to talk about your future. You work so hard and for what? To support a wife who contributes nothing to this household. This house is too big for the two of you. And frankly, it's wasted on someone like her." She finally looked at me, her eyes full of disgust. "You come from nothing, Laura. You're an orphan with no family, no connections, no money. You trapped my son into this marriage." "I didn't trap anyone," I said quietly. "Felipe married me because he loved me. Love doesn't pay bills. My son needs a partner who can elevate him, not drag him down. You're a burden, Laura. A charity case he took pity on." I looked at Felipe, waiting for him to say something. But he just stared at his plate, silent as always. "I lost my parents when I was 8, I said, my voice shaking. "My grandmother raised me alone. She taught me the value of honesty, hard work, and kindness. Things you clearly know nothing about." Helena slammed her hand on the table. "Your grandmother? That old seamstress who lived in a rented apartment? What a legacy. No wonder you have no class." That was the moment I should have told her the truth. But I didn't. Because my grandmother before she died had made me promise something. "Laura, live simply, work hard, earn your own way. Let people see your character, not your bank account. Only reveal what I've left you when you truly need it." So I kept her secret. I stood up from the table and went to our bedroom. Inside, I pulled out an old photograph from my nightstand. Me as a little girl with my grandmother. She was elegantly dressed, her posture regal. Helena had called her a seamstress, and technically that wasn't wrong. But it wasn't the whole truth either. Beneath the photo was an old envelope, yellowed with age. I'd kept it sealed for years, following my grandmother's instructions. As I held it that night, I wondered if the time had finally come. The next morning, I was getting ready for work when Helena showed up with my suitcase. "What's going on?" I asked, my heart racing. What's going on? Helena said with false sweetness. Is that you're leaving? Excuse me. This is my son's house. I helped him buy it. I paid for the renovations. And I'm not going to watch you leech off him anymore. She threw the suitcase at my feet. Pack your things and get out. Where is Felipe? Does he know about this? Felipe is at work. And yes, he knows. We talked last night. He agrees with me. I don't believe you, I said, reaching for my phone. But Helena shoved her phone in my face, showing me a text from Felipe's number. Mom is right. I need to think about my future. I'm sorry, Laura. My blood ran cold. You see, Helena said triumphantly. My son has finally opened his eyes. You're nothing but a gold digger. Take your cheap clothes and get out of my son's house. Your son's house. I repeated, my voice shaking. Yes, my son's house. The house that I helped him afford. The house that someone like you could never deserve. She opened the door. Now leave before I call the police. I looked around at the home I'd lived in for 3 years. The walls I'd painted. The curtains I'd chosen. And I realized I couldn't stay here anymore. I picked up my suitcase, held my head high, and walked toward the door. But as I passed Helena, I stopped. You're right, Helena. I can't stay here. But not because this is your son's house. I'm leaving because I deserve better than a husband who won't defend me and a woman who thinks cruelty is a virtue. Don't try to sound noble, Helena sneered. You're just a poor little orphan with nowhere to go. You'll end up in some cheap apartment, barely scraping by. I smiled. You think you know everything about me, Helena. But you don't know anything at all. And that's about to become very clear. What's that supposed to mean? You'll find out soon enough. I walked out, and I heard Helena slam the door behind me with satisfaction. As I got into my car, I wasn't crying. Instead, I made a phone call to a number I hadn't dialed in years. Dr. Santos? It's Laura. Laura Montero. Yes, it's been a long time. I need your help. I think it's time. 2 hours later, I was sitting in an elegant office downtown, across from Dr. Mauricio Santos, my grandmother's attorney. He was in his 70s now, but still sharp. When I walked in, he smiled sadly. Laura, he said warmly. Your grandmother would be proud of how long you kept your promise. But I think she'd also be proud that you know when to stand up for yourself. He opened a thick file on his desk. Your grandmother, Beatriz Montero, wasn't just a seamstress, Laura. She owned Montero Properties, one of the largest real estate development companies in this region during the 80s and 90s. She built an empire from nothing. I nodded. I'd known my grandmother was successful, but she'd always lived modestly. Before she died, Dr. Santos continued, she sold the company but kept a portfolio of properties. Prime real estate across the city. And according to her will, everything was transferred to you on your 18th birthday. He slid a document across the desk. A property deed. Including the house at 847 Acacia Street. I stared at the address. My address. The house Helena had just thrown me out of. That house has been in your name for 10 years, Laura. When Felipe found the perfect house for you both, it was already yours. He's been living there as your guest all this time. I couldn't speak. Your grandmother left me specific instructions, Dr. Santos said gently. She told me, if anyone ever tries to make my Laura feel like she's nothing, show them exactly who she is. She wanted you to learn humility and work hard, but she never wanted you to be abused. So, Laura, what would you like to do? I took a deep breath. I'd like to go home. My home. That afternoon, I returned to the house with Dr. Santos and a legal officer. I'd changed clothes too. Nothing flashy, but elegant and professional. When I rang the doorbell, Helena answered with a smug smile that immediately faded when she saw my companions. What is this? She demanded. Hello, Helena, I said calmly. May we come in? Oh wait, I don't need to ask permission. This is my house. Your house? Have you lost your mind? She shouted up the stairs. Felipe! Your crazy wife is back. Felipe came running down, his face pale. Laura? What's going on? Dr. Santos stepped forward. Mrs. Helena Silva, Mr. Felipe Silva, My name is Dr. Mauricio Santos, attorney for the Montero estate. I'm here to inform you that this property is the legal property of Mrs. Laura Montero Silva, inherited from her grandmother on her 18th birthday. The silence was deafening. Helena's face went from smug to confused to pale. That's impossible. I helped Felipe with the down payment. I paid for renovations. You may have contributed to renovations, Dr. Santos said evenly, but the property itself was never for sale. It has been owned by the Montero family for 15 years. Mr. Felipe has been residing here as a guest. He handed Felipe the deed. I watched my husband's hands shake as he read it. Laura, he whispered. This is real? You've owned this house the entire time? Yes. But why didn't you tell me? Because my grandmother taught me that people's true colors show when they think you have nothing. She wanted me to live humbly, to work for what I earned. She made me promise to keep my inheritance secret unless I truly needed it. I looked at Helena. And I kept that promise. Even when your mother spent 3 years telling me I was worthless, that I came from nothing. I kept my promise. Helena's face had gone red. You lied to us. You deceived my son. I never lied, I said firmly. You assumed. You looked at my job and decided I wasn't worth anything. You never asked about my family or my history. You just judged me. This is fraud. Helena shrieked. Actually, Dr. Santos interjected, Mrs. Laura could have charged Mr. Felipe rent for 3 years. She could have insisted on being named on all bills. She chose not to because she loved your son and didn't want money to be part of their relationship. Felipe looked sick. Laura, I'm so sorry. About everything. About my mother. About not defending you. About being a coward? I finished. Felipe, for 3 years I loved you. I worked 60-hour weeks, took care of our home, tried to be the perfect wife. And for 3 years, you let your mother destroy me piece by piece. Tears ran down my face, but my voice was steady. I didn't need you to know I owned this house. I needed you to respect me without it. And you couldn't do that. Please, Felipe begged. Let me make this right. I'll change. Just give me another chance. I looked at him and felt nothing. Just emptiness where love used to be. I hope you do change, Felipe. But you won't change for me. Because I'm done. I turned to Dr. Santos. Please proceed. The officer stepped forward. Mrs. Helena Silva, you have 24 hours to remove your personal belongings from this property. Helena looked like she might explode. You can't do this. I'm his mother. No, I said quietly. You tore this family apart the moment you decided I wasn't human enough to deserve basic respect. You did this, Helena. I turned to Felipe one last time. You can stay in the house if you want. But I can't be here anymore. My lawyer will send divorce papers next week. Laura. No. Please. I love you. Maybe you do, I said. But you don't respect me. And I finally learned that I deserve both. I walked out of that house for the second time that day. But this time on my terms. 6 months have passed since that day. Helena moved out within 12 hours, furious. I heard she refuses to speak to Felipe now. Felipe tried to reach out several times. Flowers, letters, voicemails. I didn't respond. I sold the house eventually. I couldn't live there with all those memories. Instead, I used the money to start a foundation supporting orphans and foster children, giving them opportunities for education. It's what my grandmother would have wanted. As for me, I'm still a nurse. I still work long shifts. I still love what I do. But I also became a nursing coordinator, supervising a whole unit now. I moved into a modest apartment. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. Really mine. And I'm happy. Maybe for the first time in years, I'm genuinely happy. Because I finally learned what my grandmother tried to teach me. Humility doesn't mean accepting humiliation. Kindness doesn't mean tolerating cruelty. And knowing your worth isn't arrogance. It's survival. Helena taught me a valuable lesson. Never let anyone make you feel small. You don't have to shout about who you are. The right people will see your value. And the wrong people? They'll learn the hard way. My grandmother used to tell me, Laura, the quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. Because they have nothing to prove. I understand now what she meant. So to anyone dealing with a Helena in their life, someone who constantly tears you down, makes you feel worthless, remember this. Their cruelty says everything about them and nothing about you. Stand tall. Know your worth. And when the time comes, don't be afraid to remind them who you really are. Because the house? It was always mine.